Hello guys, it's me Ali again. Thank you for watching this video. Today I want to talk about having autism and being in school, and also talk about my experiences being a college student. I do recommend you watch my other videos, particularly about the one where I talk about my struggles in school in my youth that I made about 6 years ago. I will say this, that before I begin with my video, I do admit that my attitudes towards the general education system have indeed become tainted with cynicism because of my experiences from childhood. One reason I decided to make this video is because I'm currently a senior in college at the age of 29 and will be graduating in the spring. I feel like in ways I'm behind in comparison to my peers who have bachelor's degrees now, in that I don't right now, but I do take some comfort and solace in knowing that I won't be graduating with thousands of dollars in student loan debt, since it's all being paid for by the Pell Grant. When I was younger, I did not qualify for any financial aid because of my parents' income, so I did choose to hold off going to university for this reason, and other things too, of course. So, my situation is that I'm currently doing an online program for public health at a state university in the state where I live. I have to say, overall, I think that this is a much better setting for people on the spectrum than being in a traditional classroom setting, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit later in this video. I have noticed that there's a lot of online discussions, there's a lot of busy homework assignments, and I feel like there's generally more videos and things to watch in place of going into the classroom to anywhere between 1 to 3 times a week or so for anywhere between like an hour to 3 hours at a time. I have, however, been doing it, and I do like that I can do things when I can, when I want, and when I'm in the mood for it. This semester, though, after unemployment hit me, and with the stress of my relationship with my son's dad crumbling apart and other things shattering my life, I have to admit I'm feeling a little bit burned out. I also find that I have been having a rough year, generally speaking, and not that I haven't really had an easy life anywhere in my lifespan, of course, but I'm hoping that after getting a college education that I have opportunities to make my life the way I want it to be. I also think, as many people on the spectrum can probably relate, I feel like being in a traditional classroom isn't really beneficial for me, simply because of my experiences from my childhood, and especially my experiences in the classroom as a individual when I was in grade school from K to 12. I believe that if I had known more about online programs available at the state university level, I probably would have done this a long time ago, before I had a 4-year-old to take care of too, on top of it. And trying to work full-time and all that, just no. Just can't do it. Especially in this day and age. My father may disagree with me, as he worked 2 jobs and went to school all the while providing for 3 kids. But I think that the school experience generally has changed a lot. And he also attended class on campus, where there's probably a little less homework than going to school on campus, or going to school online, excuse me. I generally don't have a whole lot of confidence being in the classroom because a lot of teachers and sometimes fellow students made it difficult for me and other individuals like myself to be in a classroom setting for people who just don't understand autism or the individuals that are impacted by autism. I really am hoping that this gets me a better paying job because it's a lot of work, it's a lot of stress. I know I have good grades right now. I've been managing to keep everything above an A minus as of late, but knock on wood, watch me get a B or something like that this semester after saying that. But anyways, so I definitely do know that getting a higher education is not going to solve a lot of problems being on the spectrum. For example, I know that a lot of individuals on the spectrum like to have a routine, they like to know what to expect and things like that. What's weird for me, and I don't know if anyone else can relate to this, but I've never been really good at committing to a schedule that someone else wants me to have. I can do it, I arrive to work on time, and I can get into the routine of things, get the job done, but I just never really liked having to commit to the constraints of doing things the way someone else wants me to do. I find that a lot of people who are on a spectrum think very differently from neurotypical people, and I think that this does have an impact on some employers who may not appreciate creative thinkers. I've found that a lot of hiring managers say they want in employees and job candidates is that they want people to be intelligent, they want creativity, they want people who are, they want diversity. I call BS on that, to tell you the truth. I'm about to say why. I found and learned in my life that being intelligent to employers basically means that someone can follow their directions and do what they want them to do. Now, some people might disagree with me here, and I might get pitchforks and torches coming my way for saying that, but I generally do feel like a lot of employers don't value leadership and they don't value people who think differently. For example, in my last job I held before I was fired, or let go, whatever you want to say, the way she put it was, we're letting you go. Before I was let go, I found that I was doing a lot of these small menial tasks that I felt were redundant and in that kind of pointless. I remember doing this the day before they let me go. I think I was just hanging by a thread at that point simply because they had expectations regarding social skills and whatnot that being an individual on the spectrum I simply didn't quite have. I also think that even though the hiring manager told me that they want to find ways of doing things more efficiently and they want to set up a system for getting things in check with their recall list of getting more patients to come back in to the clinic, I felt like a lot of my ideas on making things easier for other employees to understand, making things more aesthetically appealing, and finding a system to bring in more patients, bring in more money, were dismissed. Of course, maybe because it was not the manager's idea. Huh. I guess because looks like manager wouldn't be able to claim that idea. But I remember I was doing a task and making sure that people who had come in for sick visits had their wellness visit scheduled. And I thought to myself, why? I knew that every time I did the checkouts, I always made sure that people with sick visits had their wellness visits in as well. And that, infants that were newborns and were very young, like 1 to 2 months old, had their next wellness visit scheduled. I found out doing this task I felt was pointless that whoever was doing the checkout in the 3 days that I was sick and caught something from the kids in the clinic that were coming in and out in there, found out whoever was doing checkout, a lot of those appointments for, well, newborns and things like that were missed. Of course, I thought about this after I was let go the next day. And, my coworkers were like, oh, well, the reason why they're doing this is because they want to make sure that everyone has their wellness visits done and it's been a problem and blah, 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 blah. I walked away laughing to myself thinking, you know what? It's because other people there forgot to do stuff like this. But when I'm there, I always remember to do it for the most part. Unless someone snuck out the door because the checkout place was in a bad area. Bad setup. But it is what it is. Can't fix it now. But the overall point I want someone to take from my sharing that story is that I know what employers say they want. They want one thing, but they really want another. And I feel like a lot of employers aren't giving us people with Asperger's or autism a chance because they don't really understand the value of someone who isn't as socially suave as others but can get the job done very possibly more efficiently than people who don't have autism. I know that they do say that money can't buy happiness. What I will say is that having a good job and a decent amount of money sure as hell solves a lot of those problems that makes people unhappy to begin with. I do hope getting my degree helps me to qualify for better paying jobs because I feel like I've done my fair share of taking these BS jobs, wanting a ridiculously long list of requirements fulfilled for a job that pays, what, $15 an hour, $12 an hour? Just so over it. I am starting to think, however, as time goes on, as an individual on the spectrum who admittedly has some bad job interviewing skills because I'm bad at coming up with a response if I don't really have a good idea of what I'm going to be asked. Because I've noticed I've gotten some questions that left me sideswiped, and I'm like, wait, what? Where did that come from? So, between that and the fact that I feel like the job situation isn't very great for most people on the spectrum unless we're applying for certain jobs, I am starting to think more and more that maybe I need to go my own way to begin with, and that maybe having a higher education won't help me in that sense. I don't think it's going to hurt, and I still recommend people try to get as much education as they can if they want to, but I've heard of the saying that, and I'm paraphrasing here because I can't remember the exact quote right now, that some people are born great, others end up doing great things, and some people have greatness thrust upon them. Now, I feel like a lot of people on the spectrum either become great because they become specialized, or, as I'm finding with some of us, greatness is being thrust upon them. I am starting to find that with all of the curveballs life has been throwing at me, that this may be what the universe is telling me to do. But, like I said, I don't think having a higher education is going to hurt me. I think it can only help. But I'm really crossing my fingers that I can find something, if, at the very least to have some side money while pursuing my own company. Which I would love to do, but gotta have money. I don't have capital. It's one thing I certainly don't have. But I do think it will help me open more doors and help me find the right fit for me. Anyways, the overall point of this video, I do think that going the online way for school is just a much better fit for individuals on the spectrum. As much as we might like routine and being on a schedule can provide that in the traditional classroom setting that online schools can't necessarily do, I honestly just don't think there's enough room for creativity or enough room for individuals who are autistic to be autistic in the traditional classroom setting. I remember years ago when I was in community college, a few of my professors would put me on a spot for things like laughing randomly when I'm staring at the computer screen. Bad timing, Ellie. Or staring off into outer space because I'm a bit of a space cadet. Or just generally having a bad day, not wanting to be around other people. I'm not going to lie, I've had times where I didn't feel like being around other people. My anxiety and depression kicked in, and just generally not wanting to be around other people. I had times where I decided in community college, I'm not going to class today. I will make up for it the next time I go in. I didn't get terrible grades in community college, and I started to care a little bit more again, but I think I was still in that mindset where school just wasn't the greatest thing in the world at that point, and I didn't really, again, I got like a 3.3 GPA or something like that. Not too great, not too terrible either, but so when I got to university is when I started to care a little bit more. But I am going to say this, too. I really am all for autistic people integrating into society, as I believe we don't really deserve to be isolated, not by choice, or to be in solitude because other people didn't want to deal with us. But overall, until things change in both the college classroom and grade school, I just don't have that much confidence in the education system. I think that if people who are on the spectrum are given the tools to succeed, they can. And I feel like online schools do provide that. And to just let people go in their own little direction, let them find their own little routine and things like that, provide that they know what to expect from the professor. I'm definitely a big advocate for the online setting, also because it's more about deadlines and doing things when you can, provided you can meet those deadlines, unless you go to a synchronous class and not asynchronous classes like I am. I also think, as many people on the spectrum can probably relate to, I think from my experiences as a child, from the teachers and everything, I just feel like I cannot thrive in the classroom because I feel like there's just not enough room for people like myself. I like to laugh. I laugh to myself. That's just what I do. I have bad days to where sometimes, even if I'm a little, I talk a lot to some days or even several days in a row, there's days where I just don't want to say a darn word. I just want to, think and, contemplate things on my own terms. And perhaps teachers didn't really understand the way autistic people think or the way they may feel about certain things. I certainly feel like I got triggered a lot by my professors calling me out for certain things and trying to get me to come out of my shell or something. I actually dropped out of a program for cardiovascular technology that I was in years ago, not just because of financial constraints when I got sick and had to pay bills instead of attending school and had to go to work, but also because I kept getting called out a lot by this teacher. When I dropped out, she did admit that, she wanted me to pursue this career. She really felt like I could actually succeed because for the flashcards of different views that we had to make to learn ultrasound sonography for the heart, my classmates heavily depended on theirs. I barely looked at mine because of the visual way that us people on the spectrum can think. But again, I think that what hurt me was just by general negative experiences in school, making it to where whenever I got called out by teachers and such, it triggered bad memories for me and the trauma I experienced growing up. So there's that, and I think a lot of people on a spectrum, when it comes to going to college and things like that, you should take into consideration any negative experiences they've had and how this may shape them in the college setting. I also remember my parents trying to make me do things like join sports in my youth. Now, I understand why they did this, to try to get me socialized with other kids in my age group and things like that. I did track one year in middle school, and I tried it a little bit in high school. And then, of course, my mother did make me join the rowing team. Yes, that is a sport. It's called crew in some places, but it is a sport, I promise you. I was the coxswain, and of course I wasn't very good at it. And I just think that as someone on the spectrum, that kind of thing was just not for me anyways. I probably should have been a rower in reality, but I was just, maybe I guess I was just felt like I was smaller, and therefore I didn't really think that being a rower was going to be for me. I can also certainly say that when my parents tried to make me do all these sports and try to force me to gain some social skills and whatnot, it didn't help. It just made me more irritated and frustrated about not being able to fit in with other kids in my age group. So if you're a parent watching this, I will say this: please, 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 please don't make your child on the spectrum do things like sports and whatever to try to socialize them, because it's not going to help. It just isn't. If they want to do it, of course, by all means. But if you're trying to force them into it, it's not going to work, I promise you. It's just not going to do what you want it to do, because that's not the way autistic people are. It might work for neurotypical kids, but it's not going to work for autistic kids, if that makes sense. Now, if you're an individual on a spectrum, thinking about college and, you know, whether or not you should join a sports team and things like that to so-called increase your social skills, you know, go for it if you want to, but if your parents are trying to pressure you into it or others are pressuring you into it, don't do it. You're not like them. What benefits them may not necessarily benefit you in the same way or in the way that they intend for it to. Just do you, and I think so long as you have the support to do what you need to do, I think you'll be okay. Okay, so thank you for watching this video. I hope it was insightful or at least interesting to you one way or another. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please do so. Again, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you have a good day, and yeah, have a good one.